The cobbled alley, usually a vibrant tapestry of chattering witches and wizards, of brightly colored shopfronts and the joyous hooting of owls, felt stretched thin, like an old canvas about to tear. Autumn's chill, normally a crisp promise of forthcoming holidays, now carried a subtle tremor of fear through Diagon Alley in the late months of 1978. Every burst of laughter seemed forced, every hurried step a flight. Kaelen Dume, cloaked in shadows near the entrance of Weasley's wizard wheezes, felt it keenly. He was a creature of these shadows, a self-appointed sentinel whose only company was the raw, untamed magic thrumming just beneath his skin, aching for release. His eyes, sharp and watchful, scanned the dwindling crowd. A young family hurried past, the mother clutching her child's hand tightly, her gaze darting nervously. A shopkeeper pulled down his blinds with a sigh that was more resignation than weariness. The ministry's reassurances felt hollow, like ancient echoes in a cavern. Death Eaters. The name was a whispered curse, a growing blight on the magical world. Kaelen knew their shadow intimately. He was orphaned by their cruelty, a Muggle-born flung into a world he was still struggling to comprehend, armed with a weapon no one else understood. A flicker of movement near Gringotts caught his attention, not the hurried dart of a goblin or a late shopper, but a deliberate, predatory stride. 3 figures, dark robes billowing, their faces obscured by the terrifying silver masks of Voldemort's followers, materialized from the gloom of Nocturne Alley's mouth. Fear, cold and immediate, rippled through the few remaining stragglers. A collective gasp, then a terrified scream. Mudbloods and blood traders, one of them, a bulky figure whose wand seemed to hum with malice, bellowed, his voice distorted by a charm. He aimed his wand at a young couple frozen in terror outside Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor. This is a warning. Soon, this alley, this entire world, will be purged. The wand tip glowed with sickly green light. Kaelen's heart hammered, a frantic drum against his ribs. He could feel the familiar surge, the furious, raw magic within him clamoring. It was a familiar, uncomfortable sensation, powerful yet untamed, like a wild beast straining at a leash. This was his burden, his solitary duty. No one else would step forward. No one else could. He moved, a blur of motion from the shadows, his hand instinctively reaching for the unique hilt at his belt. It was a simple, elegant thing, forged from an unknown, dark metal, cool against his palm. As his fingers closed around it, the connection ignited. A low hum vibrated through the air, growing in intensity, a deep, resonant chord that seemed to awaken the very stones of Diagon Alley. With a definitive snap hiss, a blade of pure, brilliant azure energy erupted from the hilt, extending almost a meter in front of him. It hummed with a fierce, crackling power, casting an ethereal glow that pushed back the encroaching shadows. The Lumina Blade. It wasn't a charm, or a ward, or a conjuration. It was a manifestation of his very core, an extension of the raw magic that coursed through him, channeled and focused by this ancient relic. The Death Eaters, momentarily startled by the sudden, alien light, hesitated. Their curses, half-formed, died on their lips. The bulky leader, initially dismissive, narrowed his masked eyes. What in the blazes? Kaelen didn't waste time on words. He lunged, the Lumina Blade singing through the air. The crackle of energy was a stark contrast to the usual sparks and flashes of traditional spellcasting. This was raw, untamed force, focused into a devastating edge. He parried a hastily thrown stupefy with a grunt, the azure blade deflecting the red jet of light with a shower of scintillating sparks that illuminated his determined, grim face. He moved with a brutal, self-taught grace, each swing and thrust a desperate dance between protection and survival. The other 2 Death Eaters recovered quickly. Fool, one shrieked, unleashing a flurry of dark curses. Crucio. Expulso. Kaelen was no duelist in the traditional sense. He had no formal training in spell slinging, no years spent mastering intricate wand movements. His magic was immediate, visceral, and channeled entirely through the blade. He twirled the Lumina Blade, a shimmering shield against the barrage. The curses slammed against the energy field, dissipating into harmless bursts of smoke and ozone. He felt the impact, a jarring vibration through his arm, but the blade held. It wasn't just deflecting, it was absorbing, consuming, a testament to the raw power flowing from him. He ducked under a wide, sweeping curse, rolling to his feet and driving the blade forward. The bulky Death Eater hissed, dodging just barely. The Lumina Blade sliced through the air where his arm had been a second before, leaving a trail of shimmering afterglow. The sound of it, a tearing sheeting, was like nothing a wizard had ever heard from a wand. "He's got no wand," one of the Death Eaters realized, their masked voice laced with a mixture of confusion and disgust. "He's a freak." This was the core of Kaelen's isolation. Even when defending them, the magical world saw him as an anomaly, an outcast. He grit his teeth, pushing the thought aside. Now was not the time for self-pity. He closed the distance with startling speed, forcing the Death Eaters onto the defensive. The raw power of the Lumina Blade, combined with Kaelen's desperate ferocity, was proving overwhelming. He wasn't casting elegant spells. He was simply there, a force of nature, wielding pure energy. He aimed for wands, for robes, for anything that could disarm or incapacitate without causing lethal harm. He didn't want to kill, only to stop them. With a powerful overhand swing, Kaelen brought the Lumina Blade down on the wand arm of the bulky Death Eater. The man cried out, not from injury, but from the sudden, jarring impact that knocked his wand from his hand. It clattered on the cobbles, snapping in two. "Retreat," the leader screamed, his voice no longer confident but tinged with alarm. "It's not worth it. Rookwood will want to know about this." The Death Eaters, surprised by this unconventional resistance, operated with a series of sharp cracks, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and fear. Kaelen stood panting, the Lumina Blade still crackling, its azure glow painting sharp lines on his sweat-streaked face. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the whimpers of the terrified onlookers. The young couple Kaelen had saved were huddled together, eyes wide with shock and relief, but also with a palpable apprehension as they stared at Kaelen and his glowing blade. He felt their gazes, a mix of gratitude, yes, but overwhelmingly, a chilling fear. They didn't understand. How could they? He barely understood it himself. He was a protector, yet he was also an enigma, an outsider. He deactivated the Lumina Blade with a soft snap hiss, the light receding into the hilt, leaving him once more cloaked in shadows, a ghost in the flickering gaslight. He didn't use a wand, a woman whispered, her voice trembling. "What was that thing?" "Dark magic, surely," a man muttered, clutching his wife close. "He's no better than them." The words, though whispered, struck Kaelen like physical blows. He wasn't a dark wizard. He was fighting the darkness. But his weapon, his raw, untamed power, set him apart, made him an object of suspicion, even fear. He had saved them, yet he remained alone. The weight of his solitary burden settled even heavier on his shoulders. He was a protector without a name, a vigilante attracting unwanted attention from both sides. As he turned to melt back into the shadows, a faint, almost imperceptible gleam caught his eye. It was a small, silver serpent pin, etched with the dark mark, half hidden beneath a fallen refuse bin where one of the Death Eaters had operated. He picked it up, the metal cool and insidious in his hand. This wasn't just a random act of terror. The Death Eaters had retreated, but their leader had shouted a name, Rookwood. And Rookwood, Kaelen knew from the hushed rumors, was a high-ranking, calculating Death Eater. He hadn't just fended off a few thugs. He had crossed paths with a predator. And now, that predator would be coming for him, perhaps even for his unique blade. The alley lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. Kaelen clutched the pin, its cold metal a stark reminder that his lonely fight was about to become far more dangerous. He was no longer just an unknown vigilante. He was a target. The lingering scent of ozone and burnt stone still clung to Diagon Alley, a stark reminder of the previous night's chaos. Kaelen Dume moved through the waking street like a phantom, his hood drawn low, his unique hilt heavy beneath his robes. The whispers followed him, not of gratitude, but of fear. "Did you see it? That light sword?" Unnatural, I tell you. Where did he even come from? The very people he'd protected now looked at him with suspicion, a familiar ache blooming in his chest. He was an outsider, always had been, but he'd hoped his actions might bridge that gap, not widen it. He needed answers. His raw power, channeled through the Lumina Blade, had saved lives, but it was a blunt instrument. He fought instinctively, and while effective, the collateral damage gnawed at him. He needed finesse, control, and, more than anything, understanding. He'd overheard whispers about unusual artifacts, dark magic, and the quiet experts who dealt in such things. One name had surfaced repeatedly: Alistair Finch. Kaelen found Finch's shop tucked away in a shadowed cul-de-sac just off Horizon Alley, a place where the sun rarely touched the grimy cobblestones. The obscure emporium, a faded sign proclaimed, the letters peeling like old skin. The shop window was a chaotic jumble of forgotten relics, a petrified gargoyle, a collection of shrunken heads that seemed to follow him with their empty eyes, and a dusty display of what looked like a genuine, if rusty, medieval suit of armor. He pushed open the heavy oak door, triggering a discordant chime of bells. The air inside was thick with the scent of ancient parchment, dried herbs, and something metallic, like stale blood. Every surface was crammed with curiosities, shelves groaning under tomes bound in scales, display cases filled with shimmering potions and ancient jewelry, and strange, ticking mechanisms that hummed softly in the gloom. A figure emerged from behind a towering stack of scrolls, startling Kaelen. Alistair Finch was a man carved from granite, gaunt face, hawk-like nose, and eyes the color of stormy seas that missed nothing. His gray hair, thinning on top, was swept back haphazardly, and he wore a moth-eaten velvet waistcoat over a rumpled shirt. He looked less like a shopkeeper and more like a retired warrior. Lost boy. Finch's voice was a gravelly rumble, surprisingly loud in the quiet shop. His gaze immediately fixed on Kaelen's concealed hand, where the faint hum of the hilt was barely perceptible. Or looking for something specific? Kaelen hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I'm looking for information about unique magical foci or relics. Finch grunted, narrowing his eyes. Relics, eh? Specific kind, or just anything that glitters? He slowly circled Kaelen, his eyes sharp. You've got a potent aura about you, lad. And a faint echo of something else. Something raw, untamed. He paused, sniffing the air subtly. And that smell. I recall that smell. Magic, concentrated to the point of combustion. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You're the one, aren't you? The glowstick wizard from last night. Kaelen stiffened, his hand instinctively going to his hilt. I don't know what you're talking about. Finch snorted, a dry, rasping sound. Don't insult my intelligence, boy. I've been an Auror for longer than you've been alive. I know the scent of dark magic, and I know the scent of power. Yours is unique. What you wield is no ordinary wand, is it? Seeing no point in denying it, Kaelen slowly drew the hilt, allowing it to rest in his palm. Finch's eyes widened almost imperceptibly as he studied the ancient, unassuming piece of metal. Remarkable, he murmured. I haven't seen a focus like that in, well, a lifetime. It channels raw magic, doesn't it? Straight from the core, with no intermediary to refine it. It's all I have, Kaelen admitted, his voice quiet. I don't have a wand. I never learned traditional magic. Finch walked back behind his counter, pulling out a dusty, leather-bound tome. That much is obvious. Powerful, yes. But like a runaway hippogriff. All strength, no bridle. You made quite a mess last night, didn't you? Scared as many as you saved. He fixed Kaelen with an intense stare. You want to understand it? You want to control it? You want to truly protect instead of just react? Kaelen met his gaze. Yes. Then you'll need more than that fancy toy, Finch said, tapping the tome. You'll need knowledge, discipline, and a bloody good understanding of traditional spellcraft. Something your unique heritage, perhaps, has denied you. He pushed the book towards Kaelen. We start tomorrow. Here. And don't think for a moment this will be easy. I don't suffer fools, boy, and Death Eaters are no fools. Leaving Finch's shop, Kaelen felt a strange mix of apprehension and relief. He had found someone who understood, or at least recognized, his unique situation. But the thought of learning traditional magic, of wielding a fragile stick like a wand, felt daunting. He decided to seek out books. He needed to learn, and Flourish and Blots was the obvious choice. The bustling bookshop was a stark contrast to Finch's dusty sanctuary. Rows of colorful tomes lined towering shelves, and the air buzzed with the chatter of witches and wizards. He scanned the sections, feeling out of place. He'd never had much use for spellbooks, relying instead on his instincts and the Lumina Blade. As he browsed a section on advanced charms, a voice startled him. Looking for something specific, or just admiring the rare editions? Kaelen turned to see a young witch, perhaps his age, standing beside him. She had bright, intelligent eyes that sparkled with curiosity, and a cascade of fiery red hair pulled back in a practical, yet stylish, braid. Her Flourish and Blots uniform fit her perfectly, and she held a stack of freshly catalogued books. This was Lyra Thorne, he realized, the quick-witted Muggle-born who Finch had mentioned might be able to help with theory. He cleared his throat. I need to learn about traditional magic. Spellcraft. Charms, transfiguration, everything really. Lyra tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. A bit ambitious, aren't we? Most people start with Beginner's Guide to Charms or Potions for the Perplexed. Her eyes, however, held a knowing glint. You look familiar. Are you by any chance the wizard everyone's whispering about? The one with the unconventional methods. Kaelen felt a blush creep up his neck. I was just trying to help. And you did, Lyra said softly, her smile gentling. You saved my cousin from that collapsing stall. Not exactly traditional, no, but effective. And brave. She gestured around. So, you're looking to round out your skill set? Smart move. Relying on raw power alone can be messy. And dangerous. She picked up a book from the shelf. This is a good start. Fundamentals of Wand Magic. Covers the basics of intent, focus, and core spellcasting principles. Essential even if you're not using a traditional wand. Kaelen took the book, surprised by her understanding and lack of judgment. Thank you. I don't really know where to begin. That's why I'm here, Lyra said, her smile widening. Muggle-born, like you, I imagine? It's tough when you don't grow up with it. Takes a bit more catching up. But you clearly have the power. Just need to learn the language. She glanced at a clock on the wall. My shift ends in half an hour. If you're not in too much of a hurry, I could show you some of the best introductory texts. Might even be able to explain some of the trickier bits. I'm quite good at theory. Kaelen felt a warmth spread through him. For the first time, he wasn't being judged or feared, but offered help. I'd like that very much. The next day, Kaelen returned to the obscure emporium. Finch was waiting, a gnarled wand clutched in his hand, and a grim expression on his face. Right. Lesson 1, Finch barked, gesturing to a clear patch of floor between dusty pedestals. Forget everything you think you know about casting. Your Lumina Blade channels your raw power directly. It's like a tap running wide open. A wand is a filter, a focus, a lens. It requires precision, control, and intent. He thrust a surprisingly light, unadorned wand into Kaelen's hand. Try a simple Lumos. Kaelen held the wand, feeling utterly foolish. It felt like a twig compared to the weighty, familiar hilt of his blade. He tried to mimic what he'd seen other wizards do, a flick of the wrist, a murmured incantation. Lumos. Nothing. A faint warmth, perhaps, but no light. He tried again, focusing his power, but it was like trying to thread a needle with a rope. The sheer volume of magic he normally wielded resisted the fine-tuned control required. Finch sighed, rubbing his temples. See? All muscle, no finesse. Your problem isn't a lack of power, it's a lack of restraint. You're trying to blow down a door when you need to pick a lock. He tapped the side of Kaelen's head. It's all up here. The intent must be precise, the focus unyielding. Try again. Feel the magic within you, yes, but guide it, coax it. Don't simply unleash it. Kaelen closed his eyes, remembering Lyra's words about the language of magic. He imagined a small, concentrated orb of light, holding it in his mind's eye, then tried to channel just a trickle of his vast power through the unfamiliar wand. Lumos. This time, a tiny spark flickered at the wand's tip, winking out almost immediately. It was pathetic, but it was something. Finch even allowed a flicker of approval in his stern gaze. Better, Finch conceded. A start. But we have a long way to go, Dume. And time is not on our side. Rookwood and his ilk won't wait for you to master a basic spell. He leaned forward, his voice grave. That blade of yours, it's ancient. A relic from a time when magic was perhaps wilder, untamed. There are whispers in certain circles that it's more than just a focus for raw power. That it might be a key to something else. Something they desperately want. And if they suspect you, a Muggle-born, wields such an artifact. Finch didn't need to finish the sentence. Kaelen felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. His unique weapon, his only defense, might also be his greatest vulnerability, a magnet for the very darkness he sought to fight. He knew, with chilling certainty, that his lessons with Finch and Lyra had to be swift, or his isolation would soon become his doom. The air in Diagon Alley had grown heavy, not with the usual summer humidity, but with an unspoken dread. Kaelen felt it in his bones, a hum of tension beneath the forced cheer of the shoppers. His training with Alistair Finch had intensified, pushing him to integrate rudimentary shielding charms and basic disarming spells with his Lumina Blade. But it was slow going. The blade felt like an extension of his will, while wands still felt foreign, cumbersome. He knew he needed both, but his instincts always screamed for the familiar hum of raw power. He was on his way back from the leaky cauldron, having completed an odd job cleaning out a stubbornly cursed attic, when the first sound tore through the relative calm. It wasn't an explosion, but a sharp, resonant crack, the telltale sign of multiple apparitions. Then came the screams. Diagon Alley erupted into chaos. A group of masked figures, dark robes billowing, materialized with sickening precision near Gringotts, their wands already alight. Green jets of light, cruciatus curses, and destructive blasts tore into the pristine shop fronts. Panic seized the crowds. Witches and wizards scattered, some attempting to defend themselves, others simply trying to flee. Kaelen didn't hesitate. His hand instinctively went to the hilt tucked under his cloak. With a thought, the familiar, vibrant hum resonated through his palm, and the shimmering, emerald blade of pure magical energy burst forth, illuminating the alley with its defiant glow. He sprinted into the fray alone, green beacon against the encroaching darkness. Leave them, he roared, his voice rough with adrenaline. He met a rushing Death Eater head-on, deflecting a wicked purple hex with a practiced swipe of his blade. The spell dissipated harmlessly against the energy field. With a swift movement, he spun, the blade a blur, striking the Death Eater's wand arm. Not to kill, but to disarm and incapacitate. The Death Eater shrieked, clutching his hand, and collapsed. He moved with a dancer's grace, his unique weapon a marvel of speed and precision. The Lumina Blade cut through minor curses, blocked more potent ones, and forced the Death Eaters to contend with a form of combat they'd never encountered. He was a whirlwind of emerald light, pushing back against the black tide, his focus absolute. Each successful block, each disarmed opponent, fueled a grim satisfaction. He was protecting them. He was doing his duty. Then, from the throng of panicked civilians, two familiar figures emerged. Lyra Thorne, her usually bright face etched with fear, but her eyes burning with resolve, was already casting frantic shield charms around a group of cowering children. Her movements were quick, her spells precise, though less powerful than Kaelen's raw output. Kaelen! There's too many, she yelled, a jet of red light deflecting off her shimmering shield. Alistair Finch, however, seemed unnervingly calm, his grizzled face set in a grim line. He stood near the entrance to his shop, a formidable shield charm already encompassing its frontage, his wand moving with economical, powerful gestures, sending back precisely aimed disarming spells and stunners. He was a rock in the storm, his eyes scanning, assessing. Hold the line, Kaelen. Don't let them split up. Finch barked, his voice carrying over the din. But Kaelen was too deep in his own battle. He saw a cluster of Death Eaters attempting to breach Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, a place beloved by children. His blood ran cold. He couldn't let them. With a powerful leap, he cleared a discarded cart and landed between the Death Eaters and the shop door, his blade held high. He was magnificent in his focused rage. 2 Death Eaters found their wands sliced clean in half. Another was sent sprawling by a forceful push of raw magic channeled through the blade's hilt. Kaelen was an unstoppable force, a one-man army carving a path through the darkness. But his tunnel vision was his weakness. A chilling laugh, low and resonant, cut through the battle. Percival Rookwood, taller and more imposing than Kaelen remembered, stepped out from behind a toppled street lamp. His silver mask glinted in the flashing lights of the spells, and his dark robes seemed to drink the light. He carried himself with an air of cold authority, his wand held loosely, yet powerfully, in his hand. The Muggle-born's little toy, Rookwood sneered, his voice amplified, carrying across the chaos. A fascinating curio, I grant you. But ultimately an incomplete tool. He didn't engage Kaelen directly. Instead, he simply raised his hand, gesturing vaguely towards the alley. 3 Death Eaters, who had been holding back, broke away from the main skirmish. They weren't focused on fighting. They were focused on destruction. Show him what real power does, boys. Rookwood's voice was a silken whisper, yet it sent a shiver down Kaelen's spine. The 3 Death Eaters moved with chilling purpose, not towards Kaelen, but towards the row of shops opposite Flourish and Blots, the very shops Lyra was trying to shield. They converged on a small, brightly painted building, a wizarding toy shop, its window still displaying enchanted whirligigs and miniature broomsticks. Kaelen saw it. He saw the coordinated move, the sudden shift in target. His heart leaped into his throat. He was still engaged with the remaining Death Eaters near Florian Fortescue's, his blade a wall of green light. He could fend them off, but he couldn't be in 2 places at once. His powerful blade was a tool for direct combat, not for wide-area defense. Lyra. Finch, he yelled, a desperate plea. Lyra, seeing the same threat, screamed no. She tried to extend her shield, but it was already strained, protecting the children. Finch, recognizing the tactical shift, began to cast a desperate series of shielding and counter curses, but he was too far, too engaged with other threats. The 3 Death Eaters, unmolested by Kaelen's blade, unleashed a coordinated barrage of highly destructive curses. Dark magic ripped into the quaint toy shop. With splintered, glass shattered with a deafening crash, and a terrible, green-tinged inferno erupted, consuming the building in moments. The screams of the civilians intensified, now mingled with the crackling roar of the flames. Kaelen felt a gut-wrenching pain, sharper than any curse. He had been so focused on his blade, on the direct fight, on his own strength. He could cut down Death Eaters, but he couldn't protect everything, not with just his blade. His unique weapon, so potent in individual duels, was a blind spot in the face of a strategic, coordinated assault designed to exploit its limitations. Rookwood watched the inferno, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips behind the mask. He met Kaelen's furious gaze. You see, boy? Your raw power is a spectacle, a flash in the pan. But it is untamed, undisciplined. It serves only to entertain, while true power destroys. The fires raged. Smoke billowed into the magically darkened sky. Kaelen had chased off his immediate opponents, but the damage was done. The toy shop, a place of innocent joy, was a smoldering ruin. Innocent lives had been displaced, their homes above the shops now threatened. The fear in the alley was palpable, a dark blanket settling over everything. Seeing their tactical objective achieved, Rookwood raised his hand again. The remaining Death Eaters disengaged, operating away with swift cracks, leaving behind shattered shop fronts, widespread panic, and the stench of burnt magic. Silence, broken only by crackling flames and the whimpers of frightened children, descended upon Diagon Alley. Kaelen stood amidst the wreckage, his emerald blade still humming, a stark contrast to the despair around him. He looked at the burning ruins, then at Lyra, who was comforting a sobbing child, and finally at Finch, whose face was a mask of grim disappointment. His isolated power had been effective, but it had been insufficient. It hadn't saved the toy shop. It hadn't prevented the terror. He had failed. The weight of his burden, once solitary, now felt crushing, tainted by the bitter taste of inadequacy. Rookwood's words echoed in his mind, an incomplete tool. And as the last tendrils of smoke curled into the cold evening air, Kaelen knew, with a terrifying certainty, that Rookwood hadn't just destroyed a building. He had sent a message, and Kaelen was the intended recipient. The Death Eater's fascination with the Lumina Blade wasn't just idle curiosity. It was a deadly obsession, and Kaelen had just given him a very good reason to intensify his hunt. The Lumina Blade might be his greatest strength, but it was also a target, and Rookwood knew how to exploit it. The metallic tang of the Lumina Blade's hilt felt cold in Kaelen's grip, a stark contrast to the burning shame in his gut. He sat slumped on a worn stool in Alistair Finch's dusty shop, the memory of the previous night's chaos replaying like a broken phonograph record. He'd saved lives, yes, but the wild, uncontrolled energy he'd unleashed had shattered windows, scorched cobblestones, and sent a wave of terrified whispers through Diagon Alley. Finch had watched him with a grim, knowing look that spoke volumes. "You were a storm, lad," Finch's voice rumbled, pulling Kaelen from his reverie. The ex-Auror stood by a cluttered workbench, polishing a tarnished silver locket with a cloth. Not a blade. A storm scatters. A blade cuts clean. You almost took out half of Spindlewick's bruise with that last flourish. And Lyra. Finch paused, his gaze hardening. She's still a bit shaken. A close call, that was. Your raw power might protect, but your recklessness nearly harmed. Kaelen flinched, the words striking home. He'd seen the fear in Lyra's eyes, the way she'd stumbled back from a deflected curse that had narrowly missed her. He had been so focused on stopping the Death Eaters, on unleashing the power, that he hadn't considered the precision required, the consequence of his untamed magic. "I know," Kaelen admitted, his voice barely a whisper. I felt it. The power. It was like a current, too strong to hold. I thought the blade would just guide it." Finch snorted, setting down the locket. "Guide it? It amplifies it, boy. It makes a whisper a shout. You need to learn the language of magic, Kaelen. The quiet discipline. The control. The traditional ways aren't just for show. They're the reins on a dragon." He pointed a gnarled finger at Kaelen's wand, lying neglected on a nearby table. "That, Kaelen, is your other hand. You've been fighting with one tied behind your back." Alistair began their training the very next morning, and it was brutal. He stripped Kaelen of his reliance on the Lumina Blade, at least initially. For hours, Kaelen practiced basic defensive charms with his wand, feeling awkward and clumsy. Protego, protego, protego until his arm ached. He learned to harden objects with Duro, creating temporary shields from falling debris or incoming curses. Finch stressed the importance of knowing his environment, of using cover, of not always being the obvious target. "Your blade attracts attention," Finch explained, circling Kaelen as he struggled with a weak shield charm. "It's bright, it's loud. Use your wand to be subtle, to manipulate. The blade is for when subtlety has failed, and power must be met with power." Then came the offensive spells. Stupefy to stun, Expelliarmus to disarm, Petrificus Totalis to bind. Finch even taught him controlled bursts of Incendio and how to conjure a torrent of water with Aqua Eructo, not for direct attack, but for diversion, for creating steam, for knocking an enemy off balance. Kaelen had to learn to channel his magic in specific, directed ways, rather than simply unleashing it. He often integrated the Lumina Blade into these drills. Finch would cast a slow-moving Stupefy, and Kaelen would practice deflecting it with the blade, then immediately casting a Stupefy of his own with his wand, or following up with a quick Expelliarmus. He learned to use the blade's light as a flashbang, casting it off a polished surface to momentarily blind an opponent, giving him time for a Petrificus Totalis. Lyra, still a little pale but recovering, often joined them, though not for direct training. She'd bring stacks of books from Flourish and Blots, her bright eyes devouring ancient runes and spell formulations. She'd quiz Kaelen on incantations, helping him commit them to memory, and sometimes even demonstrated basic charms with a natural grace Kaelen envied. Her presence, her unwavering belief in him, became a quiet anchor. He realized then that protecting her wasn't just about his raw power. It was about sharpening that power, making it precise, making it truly effective. It was about trusting that her knowledge, her quick thinking, was as much a weapon as his blade. Meanwhile, Percival Rookwood, shrouded in the gloom of a hidden chamber in Diagon Alley, watched Kaelen. Not directly, but through the reports of his Death Eaters, through scrying charms that showed the young wizard's increasingly disciplined movements. Kaelen was learning. He was growing. And that made him more dangerous. Rookwood's cold smile was chilling. He understood Kaelen's growing strength, but also his lingering weakness, his burgeoning connections. Lyra Thorne was a bright spark in the boy's lonely world, a Muggle-born, easily plucked. A targeted attack on her would achieve two things: cripple the boy emotionally and lure him into a trap where the Lumina Blade could finally be seized. The trap was sprung 3 days later. It was late, the cobblestones of Diagon Alley slick with a recent drizzle. Lyra was finishing her shift at Flourish and Blots, humming a quiet tune as she stacked the last of the Quidditch through the Ages reprints. The gas lamps cast long, dancing shadows, and the usual bustle of the alley had faded to an eerie quiet. She pulled her cloak tighter, a shiver running down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Suddenly, the air crackled. 2 figures, cloaked and masked, solidified from the shadows near Diagon Alley's entrance, wands raised. Death Eaters. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. She fumbled for her own wand, a cheap, slightly chipped rowan wood, trying to remember the Protego charm Kaelen had drilled her on. Stupefy, one of them snarled, a jet of red light streaking towards her. Lyra instinctively threw up a weak Protego, but it flickered and died, sending her stumbling back into a towering shelf of ancient runes. Before the second Death Eater could follow up, a blur of motion erupted from the darkness. Kaelen, having been on his way back from a late errand for Finch, had heard the distinct snap of dark magic. He didn't hesitate. Stupefy. Kaelen's voice rang out, clear and sharp. The red bolt shot past the first Death Eater's head, impacting the second squarely in the chest. He crumpled without a sound. Kaelen! Lyra cried, relief flooding her features, quickly replaced by fear as the remaining Death Eater spun around, wand pointed. The Muggle-born's pet, the Death Eater, sneered, a cruel laugh echoing behind his mask. Lord Voldemort will enjoy dissecting your toy. He lunged forward, unleashing a barrage of dark curses. Kaelen didn't activate his Lumina Blade immediately. Instead, his wand flicked. Protego. A shimmering shield burst into existence, deflecting a wicked green curse that would have struck Lyra. He sidestepped another hex, then, as the Death Eater paused, Kaelen thrust his hand forward. Incendio. A controlled jet of fire erupted, not directly at the Death Eater, but at a pile of dusty scrolls near a storefront. The sudden burst of light and heat, coupled with the crackling flames, momentarily disoriented the masked figure. This was Kaelen's cue. With a familiar hum, the Lumina Blade burst to life in his other hand, casting a vibrant emerald glow over the alley. He moved with a speed and grace he hadn't possessed a week ago, a seamless blend of wand and blade. The Death Eater recovered, firing a series of curses. Kaelen parried the first with his blade, the spell splashing against the energy shield in a shower of sparks. He deflected the second off a nearby lamppost, sending it whistling past the Death Eater's ear. Expelliarmus. Kaelen barked, his wand arm whipping out. The disarming charm hit the Death Eater's wand arm, sending his dark wand spinning into the air. Before it could fall, Kaelen moved. His blade hissed past the Death Eater's face, a warning rather than an attack, causing him to recoil. He followed up with a nonverbal Petrificus Totalis, the spell hitting the Death Eater's chest and freezing him solid, mid-flinch. Kaelen stood, Lumina Blade humming, wand still raised, chest heaving slightly. The fight had been quick, brutal, but controlled. He hadn't just lashed out. He had used strategy, used the environment, used both his unique power and the magic Finch had taught him. He lowered his wand, the blade's hum subsiding as he deactivated it. "Lyra, are you all right?" Kaelen rushed to her side, his gaze scanning her for injuries. She was trembling, but a faint smile touched her lips. "I'm fine, Kaelen. Truly. But you were incredible. You used spells. And the blade. That was amazing." Her eyes, wide with awe, met his. "You weren't just a storm. You were a knight." A warmth spread through Kaelen, a feeling he hadn't known since finding the hilt as a child. Not just the adrenaline of victory, but the quiet satisfaction of having used his power wisely, of truly protecting. Just then, a cold, mocking voice echoed from the shadows of Diagon Alley. "Impressive, boy. You learn quickly. You protect your little mudblood quite well." Rookwood stepped into the dim light, his masked face tilted, a faint, almost imperceptible glow emanating from his wand. He hadn't intervened in the fight, merely observed. "But tell me, Kaelen Dume," Rookwood continued, his voice dripping with menace, "how many can you protect when I come for all of them? Your precious ally? Your friends?" He paused, his gaze sweeping over the frozen Death Eater and the unconscious one. "You wield a fascinating weapon, but I will have it. And you will watch as everything you hold dear burns." With a final, chilling laugh, Rookwood apparat with a soft crack, leaving Kaelen and Lyra alone amidst the quiet street and the stark, frozen figures of the defeated Death Eaters. The threat was no longer vague, it was personal. Rookwood had seen his growth, recognized his allies, and made his intentions terrifyingly clear. Kaelen had tempered his power, but now he understood the true weight of the war and the profound, terrifying cost of connection. His blade might be brighter, but the shadow it cast had just grown impossibly long. The final confrontation was coming, and Kaelen knew, with a cold certainty, that it wouldn't be just for the alley anymore. It would be for everything. The silence of Diagon Alley was a shroud, heavier than any midnight mist. Ruined shopfronts stared like vacant eyes, silent witnesses to the Death Eater's cruel visitations. Kaelen Dume moved through the desolation, his breath misting in the cold air, each step purposeful. The weight of his unique hilt, nestled against his hip, was a familiar comfort, but tonight, he felt something else, a network of connections, woven by Lyra's unwavering spirit and Finch's gruff wisdom. He was no longer just the isolated wielder of the Lumina Blade. He was a protector, connected to the very heart of this battered alley. He found Rookwood where the remains of an apothecary lay scattered, shards of glass glinting like frozen tears under the moonlight. The Death Eater stood amidst the rubble, his back to Kaelen, surveying his handiwork with a chilling satisfaction that made Kaelen's blood run cold. Rookwood's silver mask, glinting in the faint light, seemed to mock the very idea of peace. "Rookwood." Kaelen's voice, though hoarse, cut through the oppressive silence, imbued with a newfound authority that surprised even himself. The Death Eater turned slowly, his head cocked. The air around him seemed to thicken, heavy with malevolence. His eyes, visible through the mask slits, narrowed as they fixed on Kaelen. "The Muggle-born Vigilante. Back for more, I see. You're becoming rather predictable, boy." A sneer twisted his lips beneath the mask. "Still clinging to your pathetic little toy? Has your old man finally taught you a proper spell, or are you still just waving that glowing stick about?" Kaelen felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time, it was tempered by the steady focus Finch had drilled into him. He reached for the hilt, his thumb tracing the familiar grooves. "It's not a toy, Rookwood. And I'm not just waving it." The Lumina Blade ignited with a soft hum, casting a vibrant emerald glow across the shadowed alley, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the cold air. The energy hummed, a potent counterpoint to the quiet dread. Rookwood chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Foolish boy. You stand against the tide. Your kind will be swept away." His wand snapped up, a twisted blackthorn gleaming. Avada Kedavra. The jet of emerald light shot towards Kaelen, fast and deadly. Kaelen didn't just dodge, he met it. With a practiced flick of his wrist, the Lumina Blade intercepted the killing curse. The green energy of the blade flared intensely, absorbing the curse's destructive power, making the air crackle with volatile magic. The thrum of the blade deepened, vibrating through Kaelen's arm. Rookwood's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise visible. Impossible. No mere shield charm should that thing. It's not a shield charm, Kaelen countered, stepping forward, his stance wide, balanced. He had learned the hard way that passive defense wouldn't win this. It's me. Then I shall extinguish both. Rookwood roared, no longer amused. He launched a barrage of curses, crimson stunners, stinging hexes, and dark, twisting spells that sought to bind and constrict. Kaelen moved with a newfound fluidity, his movements a blend of intuition and trained precision. The Lumina Blade became a blur of green light, deflecting and absorbing spells with dazzling speed. He didn't just parry, he used the blade to redirect a confringo towards a crumbling wall, sending rubble showering around Rookwood. Stupefy. Kaelen cast, his voice firm, projecting the spell with a force that surprised even himself. It was a simple charm, but imbued with his desperate resolve. The crimson bolt of light shot past the glowing blade, forcing Rookwood to conjure a hasty protego. The shield shimmered and held, but it bought Kaelen precious seconds. He pressed his advantage. Instead of just deflecting Rookwood's next spell, a malicious sectum sempra, Kaelen spun, the Lumina Blade cutting a shimmering arc through the air, parrying the spell, and, for a terrifying moment, sending sparks flying as pure cutting energy met pure cutting energy. The air vibrated, charged with raw magic. Impressive, Muggle-born, Rookwood hissed, his voice tight with growing frustration. But raw power is nothing without skill. You think you can overcome centuries of magical knowledge with a glowing sword? And you think centuries of tradition trump conviction? Kaelen retorted, the words flowing freely, fueled by the memory of Lyra's courage and Finch's sacrifice. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. Expelliarmus. Rookwood scoffed, easily deflecting the disarming charm. Pathetic. Is that all you've learned from your pathetic allies? He snarled, his eyes glinting with malice. Perhaps I should show you what happens to those who stand against the Dark Lord. Crucio. The invisible wave of agony slammed into Kaelen. His muscles screamed, his vision blurred, and the Lumina Blade flickered precariously in his grasp. The pain was unbearable, ripping through his very core, threatening to shatter his resolve. He gasped, falling to one knee, a choked cry escaping his lips. This was the torment that haunted the stories, the torture that broke even the strongest wills. But then, Lyra's bright smile flashed in his mind, Finch's stern, encouraging gaze. He felt the phantom pressure of Lyra's hand on his arm, Finch's solid presence. They believed in him. He wouldn't break. He couldn't break. With a primal roar that tore from his throat, Kaelen pushed back against the agony. The Lumina Blade flared, not with a gentle hum, but with a fierce, defiant roar, radiating pure, untamed energy. The pain, still present, became a distant echo as his own raw magic surged, fighting against the invading dark magic. He channeled his pain, his fury, his will into the blade, pushing it outwards. The wave of dark magic wavered, then recoiled, unable to completely overcome the sheer force of Kaelen's unique magical core. He still felt the burning echoes, but he was standing, defiant. Rookwood staggered back, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. What are you? I'm Kaelen Dume, he declared, pushing himself fully to his feet, Lumina Blade steady, radiating emerald defiance. And I'm here to protect Diagon Alley. His voice was steady, resonant with an unshakable conviction. He was done doubting himself, done being an outsider. He charged. Not recklessly, but with a newfound tactical awareness. He led with the Lumina Blade, forcing Rookwood to constantly defend, creating openings. He swung the blade in powerful, sweeping arcs, forcing Rookwood to parry with magical shields that strained under the impact. With a well-timed feint, he forced Rookwood to block high, then followed through with a quick, low jab of his wand, yelling Incarcerus. A thick rope of light erupted from Kaelen's wand, coiling around Rookwood's legs before he could react. The Death Eater stumbled, caught by surprise. As Rookwood struggled against the binding, Kaelen moved in, the Lumina Blade held high. "Finite incantatum," Rookwood roared, twisting his wand to dispel the ropes. But Kaelen was faster. Before the ropes fully dissolved, Kaelen slashed the Lumina Blade down, aiming for Rookwood's wand hand. The blade didn't cut flesh, but it met resistance, a final, desperate protego that shimmered and shattered under the pressure of the Lumina Blade. Rookwood screamed as the sheer concussive force of the blade's impact tore his wand from his grasp, sending it skittering across the ruined cobblestones. With a final, decisive sweep, Kaelen brought the Lumina Blade to rest just inches from Rookwood's throat, the emerald glow illuminating the fear in the Death Eater's eyes. The air thrummed with residual power. Rookwood froze, his chest heaving. The silver mask couldn't conceal the raw terror that now permeated his being. He was disarmed, defeated, facing a power he didn't understand. "Go," Kaelen said, his voice low and firm, not for Rookwood's benefit, but for himself, to affirm his own moral compass. "Tell your master that Diagon Alley has its own protector. Tell him that Muggle-borns will not yield." Rookwood scrambled backward, his eyes still wide with fear, fumbling for his discarded wand. He saw Kaelen make no move to stop him. With a final, venomous glare, he clutched his wand, disapparated with a crack, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and fear. Kaelen stood in the center of the ruined alley, the Lumina Blade still humming, his chest heaving. The adrenaline began to recede, replaced by a profound weariness, but also an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. He had faced his demon, and he had won. Not with just his blade, but with his magic, his training, and the conviction forged in the fires of shared struggle. Alistair Finch emerged from the shadows of a damaged sweet shop, his expression one of proud, if gruff, approval. Lyra Thorne followed, her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes shining with relief and admiration. "Bloody impressive, lad," Finch grunted, leaning heavily on his own wand, a small smile playing on his lips. "Told you that blade wasn't just a fancy stick." Lyra rushed forward, throwing her arms around Kaelen. "You did it, Kaelen. You really did it." Her embrace was warm, real, grounding him in the moment. He hugged her back, feeling the strength of their connection. He let the Lumina Blade retract, the hilt cooling against his palm. The alley was still in ruins, the war far from over. Rookwood had escaped, a wounded predator who would surely return. But Kaelen was no longer the isolated boy, clinging to a single, strange power. He had allies, he had knowledge, and he had found his place. The dark times were far from over, but as he looked at Lyra and Finch, he knew he wouldn't face them alone. He was ready for whatever came next. He was Kaelen Dume, and he was Diagon Alley's protector. And somewhere, in the darkness, another, far greater shadow stirred, having taken notice of the Lumina Blade and the powerful wizard who wielded it.